Alright, today we're going to talk about slope, and this is in your textbook, lesson 8-6. Slope, we think of an incline, and you need to know that it's going to be rise over run. If you're sitting in your desk and I ask you to run to the office, what are you going to have to do first? Well, you're going to have to stand up, and when you stand up, you rise, and then you run to the office. When we think about a coordinate plane, the axis that determines the rise is the vertical axis, and that is the y-axis. The horizontal axis, which is going to represent the run or horizontal change, is going to be the x-axis. Okay. Starting with this first word problem. We have to find the slope of the ramp designed for race model cars. And just by looking at the picture, the vertical change is 6 and the horizontal change is 16. But when we read the problem, the rise is 6 inches and the horizontal change is 16. So not only have they given us a picture, but they have described it in the word problem. So again, slope equals rise over run. They told us the rise was 6 inches, the run was 16. Now we both know, or we all know, that these two numbers are divisible by 2, and that gives us 3/8. Down here it tells you that the ramp is 3/8. For every 3 inches it rises, the run is 8 inches. Now we're not going to worry about decimal answers right now. We're going to keep it as a fraction. Alright. Next situation we might have is to find the slope of a line that's graphed on a coordinate plane. Well, you always want to start counting the slope from the point that's most to the left. There it is right there. Now if you remember when we did Pythagorean theorem and we looked on a coordinate plane to find the distance, we counted the boxes. It went up 2 boxes, that's the rise. They've already written that for us. And the run is 3 over. So it's up 2 over 3. And if you think about it, rise is 2 over 3, we just described the fraction we just wrote. So the slope of that line is 2/3. And we just finished and had our test on scatter plots when we had a line of best fit that looked like this. The type of slope it had was positive. And as you can tell, we have a positive answer. Alright, looking at problem B, if we were to remind ourselves the line of best fit for a scatter plot, and if it was in this direction, that would be negative. Alright, starting with the point that's most to the left, that's up here. Since we're going down for the vertical change, that's why it's -8. So -8 and over 6. And if you think about what we just said, down 8 over 6, we've written a slope. The only thing left is to simplify it. They're both divisible by 2, and our final answer simplified is going to be -4/3. To show you how that works, if we go down 4 over 3, we're still on that line. Down 4 over 3, we're still on that line. Okay. Next, we're going to try some other problems similar to those in the examples that we've done so far. Number 1, the slope of a hill rises 3 feet for every horizontal change of 12 feet. So rise, 3, horizontal change, run, 12, and that can be simplified to 1/4. All right, in problem number 2, Mr. Watson is building a staircase. The slope of the staircase, if it rises 20 inches, and the horizontal change is 25, so 20 over the run, 25, and that would simplify to 4/5. There's our slope. Next, we have a graph line. Just looking at this, we know it's going to be negative. Starting from the point that's most to the left, down 1 over 4. Down 1 over 4. Rise is down, so it's negative. Over 4 is the run. We can't simplify that. Our answer is negative 1/4. Excuse me. Starting from the point most to the left, just looking at it, we know it's going to be positive. Up 3 over 1. Up 3, that's the rise, over 1 is the run, and that can be simplified to positive 3. And number 5, starting with the point that's most to the left, just looking at the line, we know it's going to be negative. We've got to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, down 4, so it's negative 4, over the run, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that cannot be simplified. Okay? Let's talk about the slopes, the type of slopes. Let's use our top right-hand corner. We know from scatter plots, that's positive. A line that looks like that is negative. A line that is totally horizontal. If you refer to a ski slope that is totally horizontal, it's 0 difficulty. 0 difficulty. And just to show you, to go from this point to this point, there is no rise, so that would be 0 over 2. And that's going to be 0 as our final answer. Well, if there's totally horizontal, there's totally vertical. The rise is 2. Well, there's no horizontal change, so there's no run. And in math, for no, we have 0. And if you remember from the beginning of the year, you cannot divide by 0. And so that's going to be undefined. Remember, on a ski slope, a totally horizontal has 0 difficulty. You don't want to go down a slope that looks like this. All right, so we've talked about word problems writing the slope, rise over run. We've counted the slope, rise over run, on a graph line. Now we're going to use the formula when we're not having a graph line. And first of all, the formula is slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. These are not exponents, so we're not going to square any of our numbers. These are simply called subscripts to help us determine which one we're going to use as 0.1 and which one we're going to use as 0.2. Okay? If our calculations are made correctly, those of you that pick, for example, problem number 1, if you want to decide A is 0.2, those of you on this side of the room, if you want to use B is 0.2, If the calculations are done correctly, we're all going to get the same answer. What you need to remember is the subscript is going to tell you that this is the y value and the x value of the exact same point. This is the y value and the x value of the other point. Okay? Let's look at problem number 1. We have A is 2, 2. Did not mean to put the equal sign there. And B is negative 5, 4. Okay? If I'm going to show you that this is problem number 1, and I'm going to say that this is point 1, and this is point 2. Remember, in our ordered pairs, this is the x value and the y value. X value, y value. Point 1, point 2. All right, so our formula says y2, so we go over here to point 2. The y value is 4, minus the y value of point 1. And 4 minus 2 is 2. Next, we've got to use the x value of point 2, which is negative 5, minus the x value of point 1. And when we calculate that, we're going to get negative 7. You will not leave a negative sign in your denominator. So simply think of it like this. What's a positive divided by a negative? Negative. 2/7, I can't simplify that anymore. They have no common factors. So negative 2/7. And there's my answer. Even if you had reversed that, I'm going to do problem number 1 again. If we called this point 2 and this point 1, we're still going to get the same answer. So, remember x, y, x, y. All right, point 2, the y value is 2 minus the y value of point 1. The x value of point 2 is again 2 minus the x value of point 1. Making your calculations, 2 minus 4 is negative 2, and 2 minus negative 5 is positive 7. We do not have a negative sign in the denominator. It won't simplify any more than it is. So 2/7 and 2/7. One other method I'd like to show you is the stack and subtract method. We're going to go on to problem number 2. We have point L, which is 5, 5, and M, which is 4, 2. Remember, this is X and this is Y in each ordered pair. Y minus Y, so it's 5 minus 2 equals 3. X minus X, 5 minus 4 equals 1. And that can be simplified to 3. Excuse me. Some of you may appreciate the stack and subtract method because you can't accidentally subtract a y and an x, but you do need to know the formula, and you do need to be able to use the formula. So, let's go on with number 3. We have R is 7, negative 4, and S is 7, 3. I'm going to call this point 2. I'm going to call this point 1. Reminding ourselves that in each ordered pair, we have x and y. So point 2, slope equals y2 minus the y from point 1. 3 minus negative 4 is 7. Next, we're going to go to point 2 and get the x value, 7, minus the x value from point 1, which is 7. Now we've got a situation. Remember, you cannot divide by 0, so this should be undefined. Since you are able to use your calculator, you can simply type it in to your calculator, 7 divided by 0, and it will tell you error. Okay? And if you'll notice what matched in this problem, the x's matched. So when the x values match for each ordered pair, that means you're going to have 0 on the bottom and it's undefined. So if your y values match, you're going to have 0 on top, which means your answer is going to be 0. In fact, let's skip down to problem number 7. G is 5, 7, and H is 2, 7. Okay, sorry about that. This time I'm going to say that this is point 2 and this is point 1. Remember, it's up to you. As long as your calculations are made correctly and simplified correctly, everybody should get the same answer. So, slope equals, the y value of point 2 is 7, minus the y value of point 1, which is also 7. The x value of point 2 is 5, minus the x value of point 1. And 0 divided by 3 is 0 slope. Okay? Let's go with problem number 5. Back up to problem number 5. C was negative 4 and 0. D was 12 and 2. Okay? I'm just simply going to put a 2 here and a 1 here for point 1 and point 2, reminding ourselves of the x and y values in each ordered pair. Slope equals y2 minus the y value from point 1. That's going to be negative 2. The x value of point 2, which is negative 4, minus the x value of point 1. We get negative 16. Now remember, no negatives in your denominator, so simply ask yourself, what's a negative divided by a negative? And that's going to be positive. And 2 over 16, they're both divisible by 2, which gives you 1/8. Now most of you are going to use your calculators, but that can be simplified without a calculator. Alright. Let's go ahead and do one more. We're going to do problem number 8. We have the point D, which is 2, 5, and E, which is negative 6, negative 3. Make sure you can see your negative signs. I'm going to do the stack and subtract just to show you that, again, it works. Remembering each number in first place in the parentheses is x, and in the second position is y. Rise is the change in y. So 5 minus negative 3, that's 8. Now for the x's. 2 minus negative 6 is also 8, which simplifies to positive 1. Alright. You can use the stack and subtract method, but you do have to be able to use the formula. Alright, your assignment is Skills Practice 8-6, problems 1 through 20, and you are having a chance to start in class.